promised my daughters that I'd make your Mary Poppins into a movie. I promised them, Pam.
Walt Disney wanted to keep his promise.
Mary Poppins is not for sale. She's family to me.
But he knew it wouldn't be easy.
I fought this battle from her side. I was just a kid from Missouri with a sketch of Mickey. That mouse, his family.
Critics are raving about Saving Mr. Banks. It's magical, a masterpiece, one of the year's best films.
Yeah!
Saving Mr. Banks, rated PG-13, in select cities this Friday.
Hello, I'm the Universal Critic. I talk about whatever I want, whenever I want. In recent years, we have experienced an abundance of biography films or biopics, especially ones that focus on a very specific and short period of their subject's life. These films have touched upon the likes of Ray Charles, Truman Capote, Abraham Lincoln, J. Edgar Hoover, and Margaret Thatcher. Today's film, Saving Mr. Banks, is a biopic of one of the most influential artists who ever lived, Walt Disney, or at least, that's what the trailers would have you believe. I'll explain after I tell you the story. Set in the early 1960s, Saving Mr. Banks tells the story of the production of the beloved Disney classic, Mary Poppins. This proved exceptionally difficult as author P.L. Travers, played by Emma Thompson, and Walt Disney, played by Tom Hanks, have radically different views over how the story should be told, with Travers' cynicism being in stark contrast to Disney's innocence and whimsy. As I stated earlier, the advertising for this film indicates that the focus will be on Disney himself. This confused me when I first saw the trailer, as I wondered why they would focus a Walt Disney biopic on this particular point in his life. I asked myself, why not make a film about when he first created Mickey, or about the production of Snow White, the first animated feature film? Surely we would be far more interested in seeing those events, but as it turns out, the movie really isn't about Disney. He does play a major role in the story, but he's more of a supporting role, not the protagonist. The role of the protagonist is instead given to Travers, and it is her emotional journey that is truly the heart of the movie. Roughly half the film is flashbacks to Travers' childhood in Australia, which served as the inspiration for her books. This is especially present in the form of her father, played by Colin Farrell, who served as the basis for the Mr. Banks character in Mary Poppins. It's through young Travers' eyes that we see her father's descent into alcoholism, and yet we are still able to see how he was still such a wonderful man to her. Some might complain that these scenes, and for that matter the film in general, are too sentimental and romanticized, but I disagree with that. Allow me to explain. The flashback scenes are just that, flashbacks. We are not really meant to see Travers' childhood as it really was, but how she remembers it as an adult. Experiencing childhood and looking back on childhood are two very different things. As adults, especially middle-aged adults, we often look back on childhood with a very rose-colored lens. And I know that's a bit cynical, but it's true. We are not to see these events through a child's eyes, we are meant to see them through an adult's eyes looking back. I would use a similar argument to defend the portrayal of Walt Disney in this film. While Hanks doesn't really look or sound anything like Disney, he does embody the legend of Disney's character, that being the charming and wonderful innovator and artist. I'm sure many would attribute this to the fact that it is a Disney film, and I'm sure to some extent that is true. But again, this film is told from Travers' perspective, and thus we are seeing Disney as she would have seen him. It makes perfect sense for her to view him as this larger-than-life figure, as that is how the world around her portrays him. In fact, they somewhat poke fun at that image, with Disney first appearing in the film on television, in a recreation of a scene from Disney's Wonderful World of Color program, which is pretty humorous. Personally, I feel that the sentimentality helps the film, as it eases the way it sort of tarnishes a classic film by showing us how much its production hurt the original author. In other words,
for a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down, the medicine go down, medicine go down. Just a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down in a most delightful way.
Speaking of the original author, Emma Thompson gives an Oscar-worthy performance as Travers. In the hands of a lesser actress or screenwriter, this character would have probably come off as nothing more than a harsh old crone. Instead, we see her as an artist who views her creations as family because, well, as you'll see in the film, they are. She is not overprotective of her work just to be overprotective. You truly see how much this story truly means to her, and that's what makes her so sympathetic. Before I give my rating, I will briefly touch upon the historical accuracy of this film. I admit I only have a passing knowledge of this topic, but I do know enough to point out the one major historical revision: the ending. Without giving too much away, this film concludes at the premiere of Mary Poppins. Kinda obvious, I know. Let me just say that Travers' reaction to the film, and I know this will probably ruin the ending for some, but just take that reaction and totally reverse it, and you'll have her reaction to the film in real life. But that's all I can really say without spoiling anything, and really it's probably just a nitpick. Overall, I can't help but give Saving Mr. Banks anything less than a high big screen. It's charming and sentimental, but never loses sight of its human elements. I'm the Universal Critic. I talk about whatever I want, whenever I want. Goodbye.